Hailing frequencies open, and welcome to Star Trek Discoverage, the live podcast that boldly goes into excruciating detail about this week's episode of Star Trek Discovery. I'm your host, Aaron Coker, a.k.a. Caliban, and need a bigger boat. You want to put Jaws quotes in Star Trek? Let's do this. There's too many captains on this bridge. Here's to swimming with bow-legged Kelpians. This was no shuttle crash. Joining me on the show as usual is my co-host. She's also the co-host of the Generations Geek podcast, a more or less family-friendly celebration of geekdom. It's Ella Pearson. Ella, welcome back to Discoverage.
Thank you.
It's good to be here with you once again. And I don't want to waste any time bringing in our guest for tonight. Also joining us, a musician and a podcaster, the co-host of the Virtual Theater podcast, and my co-host on the Backtrekking podcast. It's Gooey Fame. Gooey, welcome back to the show.
Hello. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you back on the show once again, and good to talk to you. I have a question for you. You are, I think, watching Voyager. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm doing a selective viewing. I'm not watching every episode. The
selective viewing. What insights have you gleaned from rewatching Voyager?
Rewatching it? The main thing I've noticed is, because the first time I watched it, I was like, I'm going to watch every episode. And I hit a point where I was like, I actually hate this.
I really want to guess what the point is, but I have a few guesses.
I'll give you one. How about that?
Oh, just one? Well, I would say Threshold, but probably before then.
No, I think it was before that.
Yeah.
It was something to do with Seska. I think when it was revealed, the thing with Chakotay, I was like,
sure.
What is this show? So anyway, I was like, from there on, I kind of skipped it. But like certain episodes of certain characters left kind of a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
Where now I'm rewatching it, and it's been about 10 years, and I've found kind of different collections of the best episodes. I'm watching a lot of them. I'm only skipping like a few, here and there. But what I'm finding is some of the characters aren't that bad when I do that. But they're also just kind of not really that present. But what it is letting me do is appreciate the good ones that I am hitting on, and it's not like, I wouldn't say it's like a bad show. Like I just really, had that bad first experience with it. But I do like a lot of episodes that I watch of it.
There has to be a definitive list out there, like the essential Voyager episodes,
I found an article that made like a spreadsheet or something that like combined like 5 or 6 different, various watch lists. And I went, okay, what are ones I know are good? And then like, what are ones that like most of them had on there that are worth checking out, or like what's important,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've kind of combined that with my own knowledge, and I've got a pretty solid watch list. And yeah, it's kind of fun. And then the other thing I'm kind of gleaming is there are just some episodes where I feel like it reminds me of the original series, because they get kind of wacky with it sometimes, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. The Shoot is in season, I think it's at the beginning of season 3. That is not a great episode, but it's kind of like a prison movie episode. So I thought that someday that would be a good one to cover on Backtrekking, to find out if there's a particular prison movie that they had in mind, and pair that with Harry and Tom are, they're up the river trying to stay alive.
There definitely is a lot of like genre eps where they're going for something.
Yeah, we have a podcast about that. It's called Backtrekking.
I watched Darkling. It was like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde episode.
Yeah. A lot of people,
cool.
A lot of people don't like that one very much, but I think that idea is so interesting, and I think that it's probably good that they didn't go back to it, but I feel like they could have gone back to that at least, once. The idea of something's wrong with the doctor and he's evil.
Yeah, I think that's fun. I'm appreciating even the ones like that, because, like I said, I didn't have to like wade through a bunch of other episodes I was like kind of upset with. So instead it was like, oh, here's like kind of a wacky, goofy one. Like, that's cool.
And we've already covered the fight on Backtrekking, so you've seen the worst episode.
Oh, that's the worst. I gotta believe that.
It's all downhill.
Pretty rough episode. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all downhill from here. Don't even worry about it. Well, it's great to have you back on the show, and this is the part of the show where we talk about news in the world of Trek, and we've got a little bit of news. It's interesting. For the second time ever since the launch of Paramount Plus, its kind of conversion from CBS All Access, they have released some information on what people are watching on the service. No definitive figures in terms of subscriptions or viewership, but they have let us know that Star Trek Discovery is the most watched original series on Paramount Plus. The second most watched was the iCarly revival, which which I don't know. I don't know anything about, but I hear it's popular.
That tracks, I feel like.
And then the Mayor of Kingstown was the most watched show this quarter. It was their best show.
I don't even know what that is.
That's the show with Jeremy Renner. That's the next age of the Renaissance.
I feel like that's the first show I've seen on there where it seems like it's been like, here's something to watch other than Star Trek. But not that I'm not going to watch it, but you know what I mean? It just feels like...
Looking past iCarly, of course.
Right, yeah.
I guess that did have... There were some people popping off about iCarly, for sure.
I've heard about the Kingstown thing. That's by that Taylor Sheridan guy. He'd also done Yellowstone and some other stuff. And it's like, for me... I know that he's kind of popular as a creator, but his stuff's a little too intense for me. I think he did like Bone Tomahawk as well, and it's all like big men doing man stuff. And that's not always what I'm looking for, but maybe Jeremy Renner could soften it up a little bit.
He's got that charm.
Yeah, he certainly does. He certainly does.
He brings the people in.
And he's definitely kicking ass on Disney Plus as Hawkeye right now. Little other news from the business side of this world. It was just announced yesterday, I believe, that Heather Caden, who was the president of television for Secret Hideout, which is the company that produces all the Star Trek shows for Paramount, is stepping down from her role, and she'll be replaced by Aaron Byers, who was a producer on Discovery and moved up into an executive role. And no real reason given. There is, there was a statement by the company saying that she is pursuing other opportunities. I don't think that they said that she was stepping into any particular role, but, just amiable farewells on both sides. But she had been a producing partner for a while, along with Alex Kurtzman, behind getting, Lower Decks and Picard and all those other shows running.
Farewell.
I guess so. Sometimes when people leave roles like this, they're going on to bigger things. And sometimes there's something behind the scenes. I'm not, insinuating that's what's happening. But as one of the main people who kind of got the work done behind the scenes, farewell to her. And we'll see what comes up in the future. Like I said, Aaron Byers has been working on Discovery for a long time and kind of making that show what it is. So I'm sure business will continue as usual. Or it might all fall apart. Who knows?
Like people like that, from my perspective, like people in those kind of positions, it's like I hadn't heard of her until you mentioned it. And it's like people like that, it's almost like, for me, if I've heard of them, it's usually a bad thing.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. Yeah, so I think
shout out to her.
in her partnership. Yeah. In her partnership with Kurtzman, I think that Kurtzman was more the sort of creative side of the partnership, and then she was like, the business side. I can't think of any other duos like this off the top of my head, but you would sometimes see, she would do, when they do like the upfronts, or if they were doing some kind of presentation about the show, it would either be her and Kurtzman or just her sometimes. So.
Right on.
So as somebody who has seen Star Trek fall apart 2 or 3 times in his lifetime, I feel like I'm always waiting for the axe to fall again, but I'm sure everything will be fine going forward. Let's talk about one more thing. This is kind of up Gooey's alley as a video game podcast guy. It was announced at the Game Awards, or around that time, that Dramatic Labs would be developing Star Trek Resurgence, which is a new third-person, choice-driven adventure game set within the Star Trek universe. It'll be set, I believe, right after the events of Star Trek The Next Generation.
Yeah, it did look like that. That's like have either of you played many of like those like Telltale style games?
I've played one or two and then didn't continue because that's not what I come to video games for, you know?
Yeah.
I want to kill stuff, but they are very popular. And if anybody doesn't know, I would compare them kind of to like a choose your own adventure type thing. There's a scenario like there's a bunch of Walking Dead ones that are pretty popular, and they usually come out in a chapter format, like they're released in chapters. And so you take on the role of a character in a particular world, and you're presented with these scenarios, and your choices affect kind of where the game goes. The closest thing I can think of on like a AAA side would be like a David Cage game. Can we ever play a David Cage game? It's because there's some action stuff, but it's mostly choices and storytelling. Yeah.
I did actually play, like I was actually, this is almost coming up on like 10 years ago. I was like pretty enamored with those Telltale games. Because I did like, when I was really young, I liked those like Monkey Island kind of games.
Yeah.
Like point and click.
Point and click. Yeah.
And those are like, they're like an even more like streamlined version of that where, you know, they take out like a lot of the puzzling and it's really just you're interacting with the story. And I used to think it was so cool and you could like make decisions and change things. And actually at that time, I always thought like this would be perfect for like a Star Trek game. It's so perfect because you can kind of tell a story and make decisions. And then like a couple years later, I kind of was like, you kind of come to realize like the choose your own adventure thing is usually pretty gimmicky, I feel like. And it kind of is only as deep as like a choose your own adventure book.
Yeah.
It's like not really that interesting of choices.
Yeah.
And so then now it's come full circle where I saw this trailer and I was like, I actually don't want this. I almost would rather play like another cover shooter, like that Star Trek movie game, you know?
The Kelvin Universe one. Yeah, it's a little frustrating because it's exciting to see another, and this company that's making it is made up of former Telltale designers. So I think it's going to be, I mean, they've tried to say that there's going to be action in it, but it feels like it's probably going to be essentially a Telltale game. So it's exciting that they're backing something like this, and I bet it's going to do pretty well. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind shooting somebody with a phaser. I'm down for that.
Yeah, just let me punch a Gorn. I'm okay with that.
Just let me throw a Gorn off a cliff. build a crude cannon out of diamond and sulfur. Yeah. I wanted to mention.
Dream.
Yeah, well, that is. I wanted to mention one more thing before we move on. Have you guys seen the trailer for the upcoming film Everything Everywhere All at Once?
No.
I will.
I think I did today. Yeah.
Yeah. It stars Michelle Yeoh. That's the reason I'm bringing it up. And it looks like, if you've ever heard of the movie the Jet Li movie, The One, it seems like a similar premise to that, where Michelle Yeoh plays what looks like kind of a mild-mannered, everyday woman, and she finds out that she has connections to all these sort of alternate universe versions of her, and we see her in some of these alternate universes and like different versions of her running around. Multiverses are the new zombies. I'm calling it now.
Yeah.
And so it seems cool for that. It seems like she's going to do some kung fu and some sci-fi stuff. It's also awesome because there's a lot of Asian American actors in it, like herself, James Hong, Jonathan K. Kwan, and Jamie Lee Curtis is in it, which is interesting. Wow. She's having something of a career resurgence here. So, yeah, it looks pretty good. And it's directed, crazily enough, by the two guys that did the Turn Down for What video. So you know it's going to be nuts.
What a wild video. Well, yeah, visually, and that it definitely had that. It was very, like, striking, exciting. I'm glad you explained, like, what it was, because I watched the trailer today on my break at work, so I didn't know what it was about. I was just looking at the stuff happening. I was like, this looks sweet.
Yes.
I have no idea what it's about.
It's a visual feast, the trailer. So hopefully the film itself will live up to that. But yeah, now we know what she's been doing all this time. And when this thing comes out, it does good, or maybe it'll do bad. Hopefully it does bad, and then she has to go back to TV, and we can get that Section 31 show.
Yeah.
I say in jest, of course. Yeah, she's killing it, of course. Well, that's it for the news. Let's move on to talk about our episode for this evening. We've just seen the 5th episode of the 4th season of Star Trek Discovery, an episode entitled The Examples, and we're here to talk all about it. But first, as always, a warning, we're setting a course for the spoiler zone listeners, so be warned, we're glad you decided to join us, but if you haven't seen the episode, spoilers are incoming. The official synopsis for The Examples is, Burnham and Book race to evacuate a group of stranded colonists in the anomaly's path as one of the Federation's brightest scientists comes aboard the USS Discovery to do a high-stakes research with Saru and Stamets. That's one long sentence. The episode is written by Kyle Jarrow, and this is his first script for Trek, but he wrote previously for the series Valor and the series Lost Generation. And the episode was directed by Lee Rose, and she has also directed the episodes Choose Your Pain and An Obol for Karen for Discovery. No real facts for this episode, but a couple notes here. Mary Wiseman, of course, said goodbye, not forever, but for now, the last episode, and she is not credited in this episode, and neither is Blue Del Barrio, who did not appear in this episode. And then this episode does mark the return of Tig Notaro to the franchise, and Tig is listed in the opening credits. Also, no star date for this episode, and let's get into it. What did you guys think about the examples?
I thought it was fine. I thought it was fun. I wasn't blown away. I didn't have as much fun as I have had this season so far, but no complaints really.
How would you compare it to last week? Ella.
I don't know. I think
she's thinking.
I'm always thinking. I feel like last week we had some more emotional moments that we could resonate more, just the stuff with Tilly and everything, where it's okay, we're gonna feel that a little bit more. Whereas here, I really liked the moments between Burnham and I don't know the character's name, the criminal who's obviously the murderer.
Yeah.
The actor really got to shine, and I liked seeing our ship's counselor, starting to crack at the edges a little bit, but it wasn't quite as, it didn't connect with it as much as last week, I think. Does that make sense? It wasn't quite, we didn't flesh out any of that stuff because there was action happening, right?
Yeah.
Saru is yelling and there's a wormhole on the they're doing the experiment at the same time as the stuff. There's more going on that way.
What happened to the humble time lapse? We hear about all the clients that Hugh is seeing, but if we just did the old Hugh sitting at his desk, and then somebody comes in, they lay down on the couch, and it's all moving real fast, on fast forward, you know what I mean? And 4 or 5, 6 people all come in, and then we see these little moments of stillness in between people flitting in and out, where he's got his head in his hands, or he's just sort of pacing back and forth, a
little classic montage.
Yeah, we don't do those anymore.
Some little Edgar Wright editing.
Doing that, yeah, there you go. No wipes, though. Please, no wipes. But anyway, I think that's what I just described is, what they're trying to get across. And I do think it's interesting that he's got this role now, which we wanted him to have, and he wanted to have, but now he's like, wait a minute, why did I want this role? This job sucks. This job's really tough. I have to talk to everybody.
And he's also doing 2 full-time jobs, right? He's the chief medical officer, and now he's their only therapist.
Yeah,
that's a little goofy. Yeah,
yeah. Presumably, he's not doing surgery, hopefully, or anything really serious. He's just waving the wand over people. But it's got to be difficult. Gooey, how about you? What'd you think about this episode?
I pretty much enjoyed it. I've been pretty negative about the show for the most part, and I feel the thing I like the positive takeaway I had from this is the feeling I have with a lot of episodes I have kind of enjoyed, which is I like the show. I actually like just the show as this action romp. When they're doing that, I'm having fun. Yeah. When they go down to the prison planet, I thought that was really fun. And some of the little moments they have with the characters, the main guest actor you mentioned, I thought he was amazing.
Yeah, he was so good.
What kind of I just cannot really get into with the show is I just don't care about the season long mystery box every season of oh my God, they said in like one of the earlier episodes, like this threat we're facing is the biggest threat we've faced since the burn. And it's like, okay,
Right.
yeah, this season's threat is the biggest threat since the last season.
It's bigger than the last one. Yeah.
And it's always like this big puzzle they got to figure out. And I just I don't know. I don't care. But, and I feel like I often feel with these episodes, I know on like a lot of classic Trek, there's always A plot, B plot. But I feel like in a lot of these episodes, I just feel like cut that stuff out and do more with the prison planet people. Like, I feel like they could have developed that even more and it could have been even better. But I did think that was really fun. And like the main guy they featured is really cool. But I often feel like they leave other stuff to the wayside, or like they just give tidbits that don't really develop for me.
I feel sometimes like they're kind of uninspired, because I think it's probably a good idea that the show has it, because I think there are some people who come for the kind of mystery and the ongoing plot, but oftentimes they don't. I don't know, like the reveal is like either you knew what it was or it's like, oh, that's it. And I think the burn was like that. I mean, it definitely sets up chaos in the Federation, so when the Discovery arrives, there's wounds to heal, but it's still everything gets fixed so quickly. All the ships are running now. Apparently, there's plenty of dilithium, and like whatever's going on, this year is kind of the same thing. Like they're just gonna find who's driving this remote control anomaly around, and hopefully whoever they find is it's gonna be something good, something that's kind of Star Trek. Another complaint I had about last season was that, the thing with the Emerald Chain, they had this chance to really set up this question of like governance and like, why does the Federation deserve to be the Federation still? And the bad guy was literally the Wicked Witch of the West. So it's just like, we kind of know, we don't have any doubts here that the Federation should continue to be the Federation. But anyway, just kind of finishing up, my thoughts about Culber. I do like him in this role. I mean, Troy had it tough. At least he's not hearing music box songs. It could be a lot worse for him, I guess. Do you think it's here's something for you. Do you think it's weird that Hugh and Paul go to bed at the exact same time? Is that the effect of their similar like scientific minds or something like that? Like, I don't know if I've ever.
They're both on the day shift.
Yeah, I guess they have the same shift, and it's cute to they brush their teeth and they get in bed, put their pajamas on, get in bed. But it's like, what couple does that exactly the same the way they do?
They probably watch some TV for a little bit.
Little space TV, whatever.
TV's out, not exist.
Well, TV's come back in the 32nd century. That's one of their problems. That's my headcanon.
That's what I think is they get ready for bed. They probably have like a little ritual. It's cute.
Yeah. Did anybody get that? So here's a little theory that I've got. Does anybody think that the new guy, the Ryzian guy who's come aboard, will be like a wedge between them? Will be like a work husband for Paul? Because he seemed excited to work with him this week.
I think he's a creep.
Oh no, he's totally a creep.
Yeah. I think they're gonna do like because they were sort of like doing like, he's kind of like the Scrubs doctor in that one TNG episode. Who's like, he's pushing the science too far. You gotta get these nanites to work right. Yeah. I think they're gonna have that with Stamets, where it's like, you're getting way too into the crazy science, and he's gonna be like, but we gotta solve this, and they're like, I don't care, you're too obsessed. This guy, that's what they're gonna do. I just imagine one of these nights when they're done brushing their teeth and they get into bed, and he'll be like, oh, Tarka said the funniest thing today, and Culber's just like,
oh my god,
I'm so tired of hearing about Tarka.
I thought they were going to do a reverse relics, because I sort of had complained previously about like, how is like Stamets like kind of like one of the dudes they're looking to solve this, when he's like lacking like a century or whatever or more of like scientific knowledge, and he's like now up to speed. And so he was talking about how this guy was like ignoring him. Yeah, this is the first episode I think that it actually makes sense, though, because this is,
Tarko's working on like the new spore drive, and Stamets is literally the only guy in the field because he invented the science. Basically,
that is true.
Like microwaving a hot pocket, literally everything else, these cavemen like wouldn't know what to do. But like they got a guy that can show them how to use this Gutenberg press, and they're going to make the best old timey books ever. Yeah.
Maybe this is the point, though, is that like first he thought this guy was disrespecting him because he didn't know it all, but now he's like easily sort of like groomed by this guy essentially into like doing what he wants because he sort of like dazzled him with the science, you know, or like treated him, he let him in on it basically.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a little weird that like both the guest stars this week were like white men, and I was just wondering if, you know, that's kind of like part of my there's going to be an affair or they're going to tease that type thing to have him be a love interest for Paul, because otherwise this guy comes on and this is like not a very Star Trek, well, it's an old Star Trek kind of guy, not necessarily a new Star Trek kind of guy, like Gooey was saying. Like he's, you know, on TNG you could see a kind of hot, maybe kind of scruffy scientist come on board, and he's like, I gotta tell you, Wesley, we gotta break all the boundaries. And he's you know, and he's kind of a jerk. He's a manic pixie dream asshole. And like, guys like that on Discovery get slapped down usually, right? Usually when guys are like super arrogant and self-confident, you know, the lesson that we're trying to teach here is like, that's not the way that we want to do things. But, you know, this episode, the guy turns out to be right. So who knows?
It was also like bizarre that the two of them together were able to convince Saru to let them keep going.
Right. He's
like,
a bad influence.
Like, we gotta stop this. Yeah, exactly. She was like, we gotta stop this because like maybe you guys are gonna blow up the ship. And they're like, no, we have to save the universe. Yeah. If you don't let us do this right now, we
gotta do science.
We'll never do it.
I tortured animals as a kid. Come on, let's do this.
Literally.
Yeah,
red flag number one.
Those are maybe the weakest scenes for me a little bit too, because like I said, I don't really get into like this mystery they're solving, but then also I just in general the way they portray kind of like the tech jargon in this show is, I'm just sort of like, sure, whatever. I don't know. It's just very, it's like very, even that is very like action packed in a way where they're like live making a wormhole and they're like yelling and they're like, oh my God.
Right.
Like, radiation.
Yeah.
Why are, I forgot why they were doing it right then. Like, I guess they were trying to stop it from, I don't know. It's it seemed very like, you could just have homework and work on this later.
Yeah. You're right, exactly. Like we don't have to do this right now.
Check in with Burnham when she gets back.
It's got to be done right now. Because it wasn't like they were trying to because all they were going to do was just sit there, and if the anomaly hits, then they know it's going to hit. And if it misses, it's going to miss. It wasn't like they were trying to finish this to model the data so they could tell the colony if it was going to hit or not. And for me, that scene was like, I don't know, I like the scene okay, but it felt like the framework of a scene. It felt like if, for instance, and this is the third time and the last time I'll mention my theory, they were going to try to push Stamets in this, you know, bad direction, you'd go, we've got a new guy comes on, and he and Stamets get really into something, and the captain's there going, you shouldn't be doing this. And then also Tig Notaro's there. And it's like, okay, so what do we do with that scene? And they didn't really, like, turn it into, like, a Star Trek thing. They just kind of did that exactly, only with, you know, percentages and wormhole and power. And there was no, like, I don't know, I just didn't think it was, like, very subtextual.
It is also that thing we're having lately where it's like, kind of like you guys were saying earlier, it's like, we don't have just an A and a B plot. There's like a A, a B, and a C plot, and then they have to jump between all three. And I think it in general weakens each one.
Mm-hmm. I was like able with the like therapy stuff. It was sort of like, this is kind of like it's going somewhere, but it felt more like this episode was just like, here's some touches on the character. So it was sort of like, you know, it didn't feel like that took away from it too much, you know, whereas like that other one was like, we're trying to crack this code, you know.
Let's talk about the anomaly, or I'm sorry, DMA. Stop saying DMA. Everybody says DMA. It's even more mysterious this week. And of course we learn that it is probably artificial. I like in the beginning where they're talking about we literally see, the USS Janeway and the T'Pau watch this thing kind of blink out of existence and then come back, like somebody kicked the cord out.
So JJ Trek, right?
So somebody turned it off and on again. It must be artificial. And so now we know that somebody or something is behind it, which I think everybody in the world had guessed, but now we have confirmation. And they start going through a couple different things. They say, oh, well, it's some godlike species. It couldn't be the Q because we haven't seen them for 600 years. Which means they sat out the temporal Cold War, I think, if my math is right, which is interesting. That's a great point, Ella. How come JJ didn't use Q or something like that in any of his movies? I feel like
God, I wish he would have.
Yeah, maybe it's Star Trek 4 if that ever comes out. But
oh my God, it was just so like that first scene was so like it's a lightning storm in space.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Are you seeing this?
So, it's still a mystery, though. And I'm trying to, what have we lost so far? We've lost, Book's entire planet. We've lost this colony. We've lost...
You forgot?
Well, I said this, a few weeks ago. I was like, how... Before 2009, how many planets of, major characters got destroyed in Star Trek? I feel like from that 2009 movie on, it's
Data. And that's about it.
Yeah. Well, his planet wasn't necessarily destroyed, though. I mean, they went down there and hung out.
Literally everybody was
Everyone
killed,
died,
but,
yeah. But that was I don't know. That was more he's this weird android. Let's go figure out his weird backstory. Whereas now it's we got to give this character some baggage. Let's blow up their whole freaking planet. It just feels really I don't know. It feels very in Star Wars too, where it's all right, we got another Death Star. It's going to blow up 1 million planets.
Yeah. I kind of feel like Princess Leia didn't change all that much though. She hated the Empire and kind of still hated the Empire. I feel like we're pulling Book through a lot of different things. Are we watching the stages, not the stages of grief, but the stages of hell-bent revenge developing here? Because he's depressed, he's sad. He has kind of a false enlightenment where he's okay with it, but then he, is depressed after that and unfulfilled. And now he's at a bar, but drinking from a flask. That's a bad idea. And, and he's hooking up with the new asshole on the ship. And so it's what's going on with this?
There was that moment where he's so who did this, right? And you do get the sense of oh, he wants to know because he wants to do something about it.
Yeah. Throw the book at him.
I would love that. I would love that arc.
Yeah, revenge book.
That would be so interesting.
As long as I guess. As long this leads into the next thing I want to talk about, but as long as he gets to get some revenge and they don't have some BS thing where Burnham's we are Starfleet. That's not what we do. You know what I mean? It's okay, I think, for our Star Trek characters to act like Star Trek characters. But if you want to do all this other stuff and operate outside the Federation, then go ahead and let some other characters kind of be that way. There's not even spoilers, slight vague booking for The Expanse. But in The Expanse, in the second season, there's a scene where Holden, who's this very heroic guy, and Miller, who's this noirish kind of anti-hero guy, they finally break into this station, and Miller is on this quest to avenge this woman that he loves, and Holden is there to do the right thing for the solar system. And they find this guy who's behind this whole conspiracy, and Holden realizes this guy's too important. I hate this guy, but he knows everybody, he knows all the connections, and he could find the secret behind this. Blam! Miller blows the guy's brains out and just leaves. And Holden's what the you can't just do that. I want a little Miller. I want to see Book go Miller on somebody.
I think that'd be cool. Yeah.
What if he recalibrates his empath powers and he becomes Dakota Fanning in Twilight, and he can just be Pain and they drop to the ground.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
All right. Yes, frames of reference. I was going to say an X-Man, but yeah, also Twilight. Yeah,
that too.
Same thing. Yeah. Speaking of people killing people, let's talk about the titular examples. This was another situation where Discovery introduced something really interesting, And I don't want to do a whole old Star Trek, new Star Trek thing, but like if this had been old Star Trek, this would have been the whole episode, for good or bad.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I thought too.
And in this, they do their best to give you like the short version of that, but also beetle bombs and, you know, a bunch of other things going on.
Okay, can I say though?
Yeah.
Not to be pro landmine, but I love those little guys. They have style.
I think you could do a classic ep and keep the beetle bombs in. Those were cool.
Hack one, and it's nice now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Give it to one of the robots that were going to help out last season but disappeared. What happened to the little Wally robots?
Aww.
I guess they don't use them in the 32nd century. Sorry, we have to kill your Wally robots.
They had a mass execution of the Wally robots.
It's off screen. But but I like the planet. It reminded me of like a classic TOS, like Orange Sky planet.
Orange Sky.
That was pretty good. Yeah. And we set up this situation where we're doing a thing like in TNG, like a Justice or like an Angel One. You know, we're talking about like unjust punishment. Like if somebody is being punished unjustly, there can be no justice, like Picard says. And I thought everything was fine up until the point where the guy who had actually murdered somebody is like, no, I'm gonna die because I need to die because I murdered that person. And they didn't really, the episode played it like, oh great, that's his choice. But for me, that's a perfect Federation dilemma, because I think that he should have the right to die in the Federation if he wants to, or in our world. But also, we don't believe in like restorative justice. Like rehabilitation doesn't work. Like, you know, can't he over time and through counseling, you know, feel like he could have something of a life again? I mean, he's literally giving back to this woman. You know, we take the idea of what you steal from somebody and their family, like when you kill them, and we put it literally into this object, this orb thing. Like he literally does give that back to this woman. Couldn't he, you know, go with them, then let the Akabaka, whatever the Akali people, you know, retry him or put him back in prison or shave some years off for his sentence. Do you know what I mean? Like I thought this was kind of negative on the carceral system. Let me clarify that. Our carceral system in America is really messed up, but I'm just saying the idea of, you know, restorative justice.
Yeah.
Well, there's no therapy appointments up on the ship for at least.
Carble's full. You got to die.
Booked out. Yeah. He's booked out. So there's no counseling.
Can't talk to anybody. So
I think they did. I think they presented it of like, well, your life doesn't have to go like this. Like I think I don't know. For me, it did come off as like, but he doesn't know anything other than that, you know. Yeah. So that he thinks in his world that's like the best way he thinks he can pay for the crime. Yeah. I don't agree with that, but I think that's how it comes off from the character, you know?
And Star Trek has always presented a world in the Federation of, you know, the ultimate sort of like liberal socialist paradise, right? And we take that for granted. So we take for granted that people are going to be nice to each other, that the decisions that the courts and that people in power make are going to be good ones, or at least good intended ones. But then against that backdrop, our characters can make decisions that go against those for human reasons. That's like the conflict of Star Trek, right? So Michael Burnham says, I know that we need to let this play out, but I'm fairly certain that we'll be in a war if I don't attack these Klingons right now. Now, that didn't go well, but it created, you know, the entire drama of the first season. And so I could just see Burnham being like, well, we have to respect your choice. Let me reach in my pocket here, zap, stun him, and then like take him back to the ship. And yes, she's violated his civil rights, but she's saved his life. And then we could, you know, either do something with that or just sort of leave that as like, well, maybe Michael Burnham's going to do that sometimes.
Anti-landmine, pro-assisted suicide.
Pro, don't kill yourself for a dumb reason.
It seems more in her character, too, to be like, I'm going to do what I think is best for you. You know what I mean? Like, she's like, I'm going to go rogue. That's kind of her sort of thing. So
I think,
but now she's a captain.
She is a captain, but she is a captain. But I don't think they've put her in a situation yet where she's had to make a captain decision. Like I like her as the captain. I think it's really gave context to what she does. You know, if she's a TOS era Kirk style captain, yeah, she goes down to the planet. Of course she does. She takes half the crew with her, you know, like Kirk always did. She's the person who is like the main representative of the Federation. But like, we haven't yet had a Kobayashi Maru. I know the first episode was titled that. We haven't had an episode yet, I don't think, where she had to stop herself from doing something in order to save the day, you know, or to make a Sophie's choice between two horrible things.
That's why I felt like the other stuff took away from this, because I feel like you could have had more dwelling. Well, also just on the idea of like, we're going to save them at all. You could have had more drama with like the representative of that planet or whatever, that prison, being like if you help rescue them, then we will do this. And you sort of have like that moment where, you know, they're kind of pushing up against it, because instead it was really just like, yeah,
obviously they're going to go try to save those people.
Yeah, they're just sort of like, yeah, we've abandoned it, whatever. And they're like, okay, we're going to go save them.
We've got an episode. Yeah, right.
But when they're down there, maybe someone from them should have been like, actually, we don't want you to save them. And if you do, just put some more like drama on that decision. And then, yeah, like, again, if you had more time when they actually, like, maybe they could have actually brought him up and done something with that, with the daughter of the man he killed or something. You know, I just feel like they didn't have enough time.
Yeah, like a reconciliation.
Right, yeah.
A redemption.
Yeah, or she, third act, she does that. She brings him up to the ship. Fourth act, he wakes up. He complains to Federation High Command or whatever.
He's pissed. He starts a fight.
Yeah, or has some kind of talk with her. And eventually she's like, okay, all right. It's like Half a Life. At the end of Half a Life, David Ogden Stier still dies. Like, we don't save him. Even
or
though
he,
we
like,
talk,
prevents her from being able to bring him up. I don't know.
Yeah, or give him some more agency. I guess he's got all the agency. He says, I'm going to stay here. But yeah. A couple random things as we get to the end here. Owo is a snail person now. I don't know if you knew that. I don't know where the actress who plays Owo Shikun is, but they had the snail alien sitting in her station. So that's fun. Zora, the development of Zora continues, and she can sense feelings. So will Zora be assisting with counseling at any time in the future?
That's funny.
Maybe,
get more
maybe in,
sleep.
like, 2 seasons.
And kill everyone. What was that? I said get more sleep. My tinfoil hat theory is that I'm still tracking that Fred Astaire episode, and I think the ship will have to confront this anomaly. We'll get sucked into it and end up in the future.
Oh my god!
And then maybe we'll find out that, oh gosh, what was his name? Aldous Hodge's character is like a descendant of Book or something like that. Yeah.
Episode.
Calypso, dude.
Calypso, yes.
Oh my god. I don't think I've thought about the episode in like 6 months. I just remembered all of that now. I just had like the most intense flashback, and now I have no idea what they're going to do. Because today I was like, that's so creepy that the ship did that. Why'd she say that? I don't like it. I don't trust it.
Now I got to go back and watch it.
Sense.
Yeah, to get the contextual details, because we had all these theories about the Federation and it being a corruption of Federation, and we've gone 1,000 years in the future, and Federation's still cooking. So maybe it has to go farther into the future.
Whoa!
Another 1,000 years. The 42nd century.
Sure, why not?
And then the big unanswered question, I think, at the very end of the episode is, asshole's got something on the back of his neck. What's going on?
Got a little USB port back there.
Yeah, I didn't see a little gill, so I don't think it's the parasites from
it was
TNG's conspiracy. Yeah.
Just another notch in the puzzle box that we got to unravel.
We got to figure out the mystery.
This thing's an enigma wrapped in a riddle inside a puzzle box.
Yeah.
Anything else anybody want to say? Theories? How do you counterfeit Latinum? Anything?
How do you counterfeit Latinum?
In the 32nd century, they can counterfeit Latinum.
Replicators, right?
It's just coconut milk. It's just delicious coconut milk.
But canned. You got to get the canned stuff.
Yeah, right.
I was a little annoyed by why didn't they just bring that one dude on the mission with them, the one crew member? who he had his own little mission that we didn't see, and he told us his back. He just like
Reese,
yeah, very straightforwardly told us his backstory, and then like was gone.
Yeah,
I feel like they're like, all right, we're gonna do it. We're finally gonna build up anyone who's not like the main few characters.
Bring Nilsson along, yeah.
But instead, it's like we're just gonna like do little tidbits, but no real characterization. I don't know. I thought it was kind of lame. Like
it's so
put him
weird
in the episode.
Yeah, it's a huge cast.
I feel like if Reese was with them when they actually went down there, that I would immediately assume that he was going to die. I would be like, he's the red shirt, and one of those Beatles is going to get him for sure.
Right? Yeah.
They could have done that, and they could have teased it, and then he's all right. You know, there's some drama there. You're like, oh no.
I studied entomology at the academy. Oh my god.
They did that with the one. There was the one like cyborg person on the ship. The first episode.
Oh, she gets her own episode. Dead. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. I think they're still mishandling, like, you know, there's just not enough time for some of these.
It's such a big cast.
Yeah, they can't flesh out. Yeah, they can't flesh out the whole bridge.
And normally, you know, they feel like they need everybody for some reason. And normally you would just go, well, either we need to throw, you know, O'Brien. I guess O'Brien's a main character on DS9, but he had a couple of episodes in TNG where he got storylines. Either we need to throw them a bone once in a while, or we should just pare it down and just, you know, they can be there and just get a line every once in a while, kind of like in TOS. Maybe they're the person. Scotty's been killing dancers, and we got to find out why. But it's not really a Scotty episode. It's a Jack the Ripper episode. Yeah, I mean, I like all the bridge crew so far. I think that they should steer into it, but they've got so many mysteries they have to chase, and maybe there's just no time to do it. Now we've got Lieutenant Christopher at Communications.
Right. We don't have the 26 episodes or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, that's a Starfleet crew for you. There's a ton of them around, and even a snail-headed guy. So, or a girl. I don't know. Are snails, do they have two sexes? I don't even know.
I don't know.
Instead of answering that, let's just move forward, and we'll say that that's it for this week. But thanks for joining us, listeners. If you like what you hear, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at EISTPOD for updates and to get notified when episodes of both Enterprising Individuals and Discoverage get released. And you can tweet to us on the show by using the hashtag Discoverage, or you can email us at eistpod@gmail.com. Also, while you're on the internet, why not head to your listening platform of choice and subscribe to our show feed. Give us a rating and a review because it really helps us out. And if you want to help the show grow, stop by our Patreon page at patreon.com/EISTpod. And as always, if you like the show, tell a friend. Discoverage will return next week for the 6th episode of Star Trek Discovery's 4th season. We don't know the title, don't know anything about it just yet, but we will be here to cover it. We'll be going live once again at 8 p.m. Central, so join us then. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook at EISTpod to get notified when we are live and broadcasting. In the meantime, check out our main show, Enterprising Individuals, at enterprisingindividuals.com. Every Wednesday on the show, I and a special guest discuss in excruciating detail a selected episode from a Star Trek series. We also have news from the Trek sphere and interviews with special guests, probably coming up next week. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense. I'll be putting out our Christmas episode, which is generally a clip show, a sort of greatest hits from our last season. But in the meantime, may I suggest that you check out our sister podcast, Backtrekking, where Gooey Fame and I look at the real-world inspirations behind your favorite Trek episodes. Our latest episode just dropped. On it, we take a look at the 1962 Cold War thriller, The Manchurian Candidate, and the Next Generation episode it inspired, The Mind's Eye. Geordi's got a gun, and Data's got a run. You can find Backtrekking.
Wow.
You can find Backtrekking wherever you get your podcasts. Ella, thanks as always for joining me to talk about tonight's episode of Discovery and remind people where they can find you online.
Thank you. My home podcast is called Generations Geek, which I do with my dad, and you can find us at Generations Geek on all social media and wherever you listen to podcasts.
Awesome. And Gooey, it's always great to have you. Where can people find you on the internet?
Go on Twitter. I'm at Gooey Fame.
All right, that's it for us. Thanks for listening. We are signing off. This is Aaron for Ella and Gooey saying live long and prosper.